It is your General Greene. God bless you. Saluting you all on this glorious August 25th, 2025. Please take a moment to like and share this video. This is going to be a big one because it's a massive emergency video for America, a massive warning for the United States of America. Nothing will ever be the same again. So it's very important. Let me know you have audio and visual, like and share. America is entering now. This is not something happening in the future, but a massive transitionary crisis into artificial intelligence, robotics, and blockchain. And it will never, ever be the same again. America is entering now a pre-planned, predetermined, and designed by the elite stagflation collapse. A stagflationary collapse. For those of you who don't know what that is, stagflation means there's massive hyperinflation. You can't afford anything like Zimbabwe. Housing prices, rents, food, healthcare, the list goes on and on, keeps going up, 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 and up while your real wages continue to collapse as they destroy the dollar. But in addition to that, there's no real economic growth at all. And this is where we are in the United States today. In fact, because things are so different now under Donald Trump's leadership, whether you love him or don't like him or think he's great or don't think he's great, nothing will ever be the same. Case in point, the United States government, through Trump and his administration, are now nationalizing America's companies. We have not seen this since the socialist days of the Fuhrer. We have not seen this, is what the left would say. We have not seen this since the days of Stalin, or the days of Russia before it collapsed, where it nationalized and then through price controls actually controlled and dictated the entire economy. Now, this is the argument right now. I also understand both sides of it, why Donald Trump has done it. But we must understand that never before has there been a merriment of what should be private capitalism with state power. This is incredibly, incredibly dangerous. But what a lot of Americans did not pick up on is that the country had already been socialized years and years ago. See, the country had already been overthrown multiple decades ago, and no one revolted. I did peacefully. Again, I've been speaking publicly. I've actually been organizing, and I'm the only person in the world, along with my team and father, with an actual active real-world solution in the real world that has no bank debt. This is completely contrary to the banking system, which, let's talk about that for a minute. Very few of you don't even know that to this very day, that every single U.S. financial institution, which has also been nationalized by the government, this happened in 2008 and 09 with the pre-planned bailouts, companies like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac that issued all the phony, crony, and what I think are criminal mortgages that collapsed the entire economy, right, in 2008-09, threatened martial law in American streets, according to U.S. congressmen and women, had already nationalized all of the banks, including Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. The government took a stake in all the too big to fail companies and institutions. So this has been going on for a very, very long time. And it, in effect, overthrew true capitalism and turned America into a crony capitalist, arguably police state. Now, again, there was a choice then to revolt peacefully. There was a choice then to resist. Just like in 2020, do not comply. Lockdowns, closures of businesses, plastic on you-know-what, and the list goes on. We'll keep it PC today, but I think you understand. Those were the moments to actually revolt. The 99.9% did nothing. They sat back on their hands. They were apathetic losers. They did not come up with any kind of solution. They did not join like minds. Now, the banks today, since 2020, no longer have any reserves of your money. So I want you to understand what's coming, and then I'll give more solutions as we move ahead in today's giant emergency warning video. The U.S. banking system used to have a minimum reserve requirement of 10%. This This was even after 2008 and 09. They kept belittling it over time, right? Lower and lower and lower. This means that for every $100,000 that you deposited at a U.S. bank, they would at least have to hold and maintain reserves of 10,000 while lending out the rest of the 90% in a hyperinflationary over-leveraged Ponzi scheme. So I want you to keep this in mind. Even at 10% reserve rates at all U.S. banks prior to the lockdowns, pre-engineered and pre-planned in 2020, just like 2008-09 was an inside job, at least had to maintain 10% reserves before they hookered all your worthless cash out in the form of loans, mortgage-backed securities, and other debt operations at scale, lending out the 90% of which they didn't have. Already then with 10% reserves minimum, okay? Bank runs were already imminent. That would mean that if everyone showed up at a bank like Bank of America, which received trillion-dollar bailouts, along with a host of other companies in aggregate, like Warren Buffett's favorite company, Wells Fargo, which has since been actually convicted of outright banking fraud while he was an investor. Companies like JP Morgan Chase that funded Epstein and all the trafficking of kids, absolutely disgusting. Citigroup and others, and all of these other companies that failed the American public in 2008 and 09. So already it was a giant savings and loan, banking, debt, bank run crisis recipe for disaster waiting to happen at a measly 10% reserves. But something funny happened in 2020. All pre-planned, all by design, to transfer you into a new economic hegemonic blockchain system, which I've also been predicting and warning about for multiple decades and helping to make you rich long ahead of the elites' Machiavellian plans for lockdowns, global control, massive surveillance state, and of course the dictatorships they're now launching worldwide. In 2020, the Federal Reserve and the central bank, owned by no American, private entities owned by the wealthiest elites, of which you don't vote for, of which you have no public control at all, of which nothing you say or do matters, just like most policy decisions today. Your vote, in my opinion, doesn't count. It just doesn't. The two-party, divisive, fake system is all lies and all illusions. But in 2020, proving my point once again, the central bank and the criminal Federal Reserve removed all reserve requirements. The reserve requirements shifted from 10%, a measly bank-run 10%, to now zero. Poof. There goes Puff the Magic Dragon, which is what the government is smoking. Weed or some other kind of psychotic drug, which is, arguably their, demonic possession, as most of these people don't worship God, don't believe in God. And of course, we're at war with principalities and spirits, and they're not of this world. I mean, there's no such thing as aliens. We're just fighting demons until Jesus Christ, imminent return in the rapture, baby. Can't wait to go up. It's going to be freaking sick. I'll see you all in the air. But my point is that a lot of Americans still don't know to this day that the government removed all reserve requirements from the banks, teeing up the recipe for a massive future disaster, economic wealth transfer, and a shock of all shocks that will rhyme but be a little different from 1929. And it'll be much worse than 2008 and 2009. Case in point, the U.S. government said today that they'll be nationalizing and taking over more companies in the United States of America. Again, I understand both sides. So let's understand and think about what's happening now. America is no longer the old America. And so I want you to understand that a coup took place over the last several decades. I'm not blaming Trump per se. I'm saying this has happened over a long period of time. The Obamas, the Clintons, I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Christopher. I did not have sexual relations with that woman. As if he would want sexual relations with Hillary Clinton. Can't even blame the guy. And I'm being kind of funny. But the point is that the whole government had already been overthrown. You were already in a hard or at the very least, soft coup from the very beginning. Now, as Donald Trump has come to power, Republicans and Democrats, just an illusion of a two-party system, suddenly all these companies are being nationalized, like Intel, like a literal merger, what the left would call and deem a fascistic, seamless integration of what should be private companies and enterprises that should have nothing to do with the federal government and taxpayers at all, suddenly owned outright by the state. Does that make any sense to you? No, not at all. Again, I understand why Trump is doing it. He's trying to take some national equity in the companies that have already been bailed out instead of leaving the taxpayer out to dry. But even with good intentions, it will backfire on Trump as soon as a Democrat gets in and then reverses those same policies, mismanages or misspends the money they supposedly made. Because again, you can't trust your government, they're broke. Again, why would you trust your government if it's bankrupt? How and why would you trust a government if its debt is unrepayable? How and why would you trust banksters that have zero reserve requirements and screwed all of you in 2008-09? See, it's the reverse here at the Island Project. You know what our reserve requirements are for all founders? 100%. We have a 100% reserve requirement at islandproject.com. That means every dollar invested is backed by the equivalent real estate. No bank debt, no leverage. The Founders Round is literally built on the cornerstone of God. Physical, real, cash flow producing assets. And by the way, the Founders Round is now closed. Deck 2 to be launched. Leave my dad a text message. He's super busy. He's taken way too many calls the last few days. But text him to get in. Say, Papa John, I'm RSVPing. His number is 808-442-2934. Just send a text. Papa John, I'm RSVPing for Deck 2. Leave a little note, your name, and your callback number to get in. This includes existing founders, right, that are going to beef up into additional units for more time and use, an enhancement and additional acquisitions of properties to live your investment with no bank debt. So make sure you RSVP for that now. It's going to happen real quick. And congratulations to our amazing founders on the successful completion of our 3-year God-ordained roadmap and the completion of the $33.5 million fundraise. Absolutely incredible. I'll talk a little bit about my grandfather here in a minute. I wanted to share with you just some amazing, personal stories about our ancestors, which I think are really cool. And before I forget, you should walk into every room as if your ancestors put you there. They loved you, and all of the previous generations had to fight gravely for the very little freedom and liberty that we still possess. So nothing about America will be the same moving forward. Again, notice companies are being nationalized. Certain freedoms are being removed. Now, again, I like Trump, but I'll also call him out when I believe he's in the wrong. One, always disagreed with what happened in 2020, always told you not to comply, always stood my ground, and honestly even bashed those policies while they were happening. Well, today I saw something that actually concerned me. Now, although I definitely do not agree and think it's horrible to burn an American flag in the United States, I do believe that it is every American's right to free speech to do it. Donald Trump came on camera today and said that if anyone and any American burns an American flag with literally one flicker of a flame, they will be jailed for a minimum of a year, permanently for that entire year, with no easy or early exit. That is really scary, honestly, because although I completely disagree with burning the flag, I agree to a large extent of what Donald Trump is trying to convey. I absolutely digress and disagree, and am in complete contradiction of the principle that somebody protesting their nation, like a free supposed country that the United States, could not burn an American flag if they want to. See, this is just another step to more massive controls and egregious tyranny moving forward. I also want you to think about something very important, that if your rights have already been infringed, that if this has happened over a long period of time, a soft to arguably hard coup. I mean, the 2020, that was a hard coup. That was a hard ass lockdown. I mean, we all remember the pandemonium and the massive fear mongering and just, the eccentricities, the anxiety among friends and family of yours. I mean, people being banished to Thanksgiving. I mean, just the ridiculous nature of it all. But understand, if that's already happened and there's been no revolt and there's been no changes, then there's no turning back to what's ahead. So again, where is this going? The elites figured out a very crafty way to reset the debt-based system into a new one while screwing all of you tuning in. This is the bankster class and the central banks that shouldn't exist. By transitioning all that debt into a new marketplace called stablecoins that they will also print to infinity. Many of you have been following me for a long time, understand this principle, but of course, all the stablecoins backed by nothing, fully controlled by the government, Wall Street, and Goldman Sachs and others, and Lutnick and the inside crew, and Scott Bessent, who was hand in hand with the radical leftist George Soros. Notice Donald Trump handpicked him, hired him outright, who helped to collapse the British pound, because they're in process of collapsing the US dollar now. Nothing will be the same again. This is also why I've said and argued for many months that Donald Trump is now expanding the borders with the intention to acquire Canada and also other areas like Greenland and the Panama Canal. He knows, as well as I know, and you should know, that America cannot compete with the growing global system and the new order without completely transforming into a new one, diminishing human rights, diminishing human sovereignty, increasing the massive surveillance state, transferring into a new money monetary system, and inventing new technologies of which they are intent on controlling. Again, I've had a lot of calls over the last few days. And by the way, it's the last chance to get into the club. I won't be taking any more calls after this. I've already booked up for this entire month. And, I just can't do any more. So if you want to get in, make sure you click the link below at islandprojectclub.com. One-time payment of $1,500. And also make sure you get my next video. At the very least, you're going to want to subscribe there just to get my exclusive content, as I will talk about crypto next and positioning into this bull market that Donald Trump is obviously setting up. I'll give you a minute to do that. It's islandprojectclub.com. Click the link below. So nothing will ever be the same again. Donald Trump has to figure out a way to compete with the rising East. Keep in mind that our direct competition is a bunch of commies. The people that Elon Musk loved to do business with and are deeply ingrained and embedded with over in China with Xi Jinping, an outright communist dictator, probably arguably no different than Mao Zedong. So just understand that those guys building the East in this new AI information age are dictators. And they have no rules on their governance. They also lead indefinitely. There is no vote, and their political enemies they get rid of and dispose. And I'm putting that nicely. Contrary to the United States, which has a hocus-pocus, fake two-party illusion of a system, which really is a corporatocracy owned by Fortune 100 oligarchs and billionaires that don't pay any taxes at all. Really zero taxation for the wealthiest individuals as they funnel all of that money into various fronts. And most of their income isn't earned through W-2s or anything like that. So there's ways that they can borrow against their money, etc., and route things very strategically through complicated and complex tax structures and other entities like that. So understand, Donald Trump also knows that. For example, the only way to compete with a dictatorship is to actually, I think you know where I'm going with this, partly become one. Vladimir Putin, who also is an indefinite leader, who rules indefinitely, who can make public policy decisions on a continued basis over and over again without having to worry about being replaced. Can't be competed against as America was, designed with its current system. Now, again, I'm against all these things happening. So I just want you to understand this so you understand where I stand. I am number one for preserving the absolute concrete integrity of the Constitution of America and the Bill of Rights. Any infraction, of which they have been many, deems a revolution. And it actually tells us that in the founding documents, which is essentially the Bible for this country. My personal view on sovereignty, the United States, the Constitution of Bill of Rights is clear. I'm going by line the actual book. Okay, so that's where I stand. But I'm telling you where these people stand. They're transforming your country into a new entity through a leveraged buyout of the American people, through a fascistic merger of the state with Fortune 100, through excessive infinite bailouts, to continued infringement and impingement of every liberty you once enjoyed. Massive tracking, for example, which is illegal on every phone that you hold in your hand. Every device, even if you turn these settings off, is a massive anti-constitutional, arguably illegal infringement on the American Constitution and Bill of Rights. But again, 99.9% of the American people have done nothing, and they will reap what they sow. Giant and gigantic wealth transfer, massive stagflationary collapse, and egregious, enormous suffering for future generations that do not pivot, leverage, and profit now to get on the right side of history. And this is something I've been very passionate about for a very, very long time. Please like and share. It's the purpose for my existence. It's why I built the Island Project, and it's why it's been so successful. Again, get into Deck 2. Text my dad for your RSVP and get into my club, which is also a prerequisite to get into Deck 2. All my members at islandprojectclub.com, just pay for the price of admission just to be let in for the opportunity into Deck 2. Major announcements coming. I'm very, very grateful. I have enormous gratitude, and I'm so proud, honestly, in God. And all of you tuning in and our 400 members from around the world here in North America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Europe, parts of Asia, the list goes on and on. We have over 12 different nation states of members now that are empowering themselves, building new economic sovereignty in a private ecosystem, not controlled by the totalitarian surveillance states, of course, that are now taking over. And this even includes a lot of the politics and policies in the West. And I'm not unfairly targeting Trump. I want you to understand this. There's a lot that I really love with what he's doing. But understand that America is much more becoming Singapore. This is why the National Guard is being armed. This is why Trump is saying if you burn an American flag, you're going to jail. But let us understand that's not what the Constitution says. Okay? So this is a very dangerous, slippery slope. Because even if you trust Trump, once Gavin Newsom or a radical left cuck gets into power, they will reverse that against conservatives, Christians more importantly, and Republicans. I also want you to be keenly aware that all Christians are at grave risk moving forward. All Christians. All Christians. So there's a lot of apathetic, burying their heads in the sand right now in America where they think that they're safe. You're not. And I'm here to tell you, you're not. Just as history has proven that one of the most targeted groups through all of human history is Christians, it will be again, and it tells us exactly in the Bible. I mean, go look at the book of Revelation, for example, and the events leading up to the rapture. There's going to be birth pangs, tribulation, and all kinds of pain and suffering. I mean, John had his head cut off, for crying out loud. The disciples, this is very interesting. I wanted to point this out, and I've pointed it out before. There were 12 disciples. Notice that even in Bitcoin, How many private word passphrases are there which you should never give to anyone else? I've said this for years. Again, I know where all this stuff comes from. 12. It's a 12-word seed phrase. Interesting. Yes, April, amen. So all of this is moving this direction. And here's the point. So many Americans and people, citizens around the world, are caught up in these politics they have zero control over, no influence at all, no say in. It doesn't change anything. For example, it's kind of ancient wisdom, right? It's even biblical, spiritual, that you should only focus on the things that you can control. The other things you give to God. For example, every day I work my ass off. Every day I build. I find my ikigai. It's a Japanese term for a purpose-driven life, something that you love to do, that you always do. There's no word for retirement because if you love what you do, it's what keeps you alive. The day you retire is the day you die. The day you stop working is the day you're dead and lack purpose. That's always been my opinion. I'm not against other people that maybe are built different, and that's what they like to do. But again, my opinion is that if you retire simply for selfish, egregious needs of yours to ingratiate yourself like King Solomon, as if you're just a pleasure seeker and you have nothing better to do but sit on your ass like a loser, to me, I think also will be judged by God. I just believe we have so much work to do with such little time. Why would you not put in extreme effort? Even if it was just volunteer work that you were doing to help your community on a daily basis and it was just charity. Otherwise, your complete lack of involvement and self-egoism and focus on your own narcissism would honestly just prove yourself, honestly, the weakest link in why humanity sucks like it currently does. These are just kind of my personal thoughts and opinions. Again, if everybody had refused the lockdown, there would not be a lockdown. If no one complied, there would be no compliance because they couldn't control you. Do you understand? The people have the power. And Malcolm X once said this, that the most powerful entity on earth is the media because it's used to control and influence your mind. And we all know what happened to him. Whether or not that was X, Malcolm X, or JFK, or it was MLK. We see what the government did when it was threatened. So again, this whole idea, and I told you this years ago, America is not going back to the old America. They're transforming it and overthrowing it. And this is a key point. However, knowing that information, you should only focus on what you can control and influence and leave the rest to God. I gave you the example just in my own life. What do? Build, acquire, buy more properties with no bank debt, get rich, help my members, organize worldwide, provide real world solutions along with my team and my extraordinary father, Papa John, educate, position for what we know is going to happen next, empower those around me, organize through the Spirit of God and build kingdom wealth, is much more of a successful position to be in than that of one of weakness, of a bystander, of somebody who's just loosely paying attention and doing nothing. Let's move into those actionable ideas now as we review what's happening into the crypto space. As predicted, both Bitcoin and Ethereum within the last several weeks have both broken out to new all-time highs. Bitcoin traded as high as 124K about, I think it was, a week ago. New record, shattered every expectation, and just as I predicted, new prices never seen before, broken and set. This will continue to happen. Last week, a few days ago, 3 days ago, I think it was, Ethereum also broke out after nearly tripling, over tripling, to just under $5,000 from just near $1,500, what was it, like a month or two ago, when I told you to buy. Absolute records, absolute new all-time highs. And in addition to that, Donald Trump, Washington, D.C., Wall Street, and the banks, and the central bank, instead of banning Bitcoin, crypto, and blockchain, like many people told me that were all wrong, horribly, horribly wrong. 99.9% as usual. I mean, why would you pay attention to broke people that don't even know what they're talking about, right? The 99.9% are typically, always wrong. But instead of banning or getting rid of blockchain and crypto, are now buying it, are now endorsing it, are now forming ETFs around it, like BlackRock, are now moving you into a stablecoin infrastructure, passing the Genius Act, the crypto consortium. The list goes on and on. Donald Trump, even with his own companies and sons, the primary mission statement and their primary business model is crypto. That should tell you something. Trump coin is meme coin, which I own a lot of. World Liberty Fi, a new decentralized DEX to help the unbanked become banked. And I applaud them. Wonderful, great new technology. And hopefully they carry through and build an amazing product, which I hope and think that they probably will do. All of their other host of companies that are solely focused on Bitcoin, blockchain, and crypto. The number one focus of the Trump family. So I want you to keep this in mind. The number one focus of Washington, D.C. is stablecoins now. That's how important it is. And it's all being led up to what's going to happen. So let me review maybe my opinions and just some kind of gut instincts that I have. I'm actually really liking the market action right now. It's extremely bullish. The fact that we've been consolidating, weakening a bit ahead of the World Liberty Fi launch and what we know is inevitably coming next, a complete worldwide takeover of all fiat currencies as they collapse into oblivion, and new blockchain technologies like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP, and many others, and my company, the Island Project, overthrows the entire real estate market, becomes the new system. So understand that. All of that's coming, whether you like it or not. All of these technologies will replace fiat, and they will replace the new system, not to mention AI and robotics, all of that as well. NVIDIA just announced a new brain chip for all the robots that they will be replacing all human workers with. Massive human replacement, massive bloodbath for the middle class, massive circumvention of these new technologies, massive unemployment. Elon Musk actually responded to this over the weekend. Let me read to what he said. He's actually lying, and I'll explain to that in a moment. He has his own self-interest, of course. Somebody asked, when robots replace working people, how will those who become unemployed sustain their lives? Elon Musk responded, there will be universal high income, not merely basic income. Everyone will have the best medical care, food, home, transport, and everything else. Sustainable abundance. Lies. All of that is a lie. Nope. None of that is true. There will not be universal high income. There will be universal peasant income. And I've been saying this for years. And there will not be sustainable abundance. That even sounds absolutely fake and fictitious. Even the words that he used, sustainable abundance, what the hell is that? There will only be oligarchs and peasants. Universal high income, that's a lie. It won't even be universal basic income. It will be universal poverty income. And it won't be sustainable at all. Again, all the elites know that this transitional crisis into the robotic AI age, into the blockchain age, is a giant threat to their circumventional oligarchical power that they currently possess. Their aggregate power and stranglehold on the necks of every single American, their infinite bailouts, their infinite DOD contracts, their infinite insider dealings, the tens of billions of dollars of free bankster class money, and infinite bailouts that they receive from you and the American taxpayer. And it's why they're all building bunkers deep into the ground. Whether or not this is places like New Zealand or this is places like Kauai. And we know who those people are. They realize, as you should as well, that the great majority are a lot more powerful than a couple dudes that hold the keys to all of human civilization. So they have a self-incentive to sell you on the idea that you can sit on your ass all day, eating Doritos, getting super fat on universal fake, high income, living some kind of sustainable life as you eat bugs and freaking crickets during the human replacement. It's all lies. So I think I've made my point there. But I also want to stress, and I'm actually extremely bullish in the crypto space right now. From the vantage point, things are actually more bullish than even I thought. I was expecting that we would probably just keep shattering crazy freaking records as we were approaching the next few weeks into September. And instead of that, altcoins haven't really rallied yet. It's an excellent time to buy. The big mega caps have broken new all-time highs like Bitcoin and Ethereum, but the rest of the market really hasn't picked up. So this to me is actually bullish, very bullish, and is really the perfect storm for what is ahead. I told you that there would be a little bit of a shakeout before the breakout up only. Let me do a quick review here. Let's just take a look. It's always good to see the forest through the trees. Funny, I got a comment earlier. Someone's like, where's this bull market you've been talking about? I just explained it to you. Bitcoin just broke 124K. Are you stupid? Bitcoin just hit 124K a couple days ago. Ethereum just broke a new all-time high. Are you like ignorant? Or do you just not understand mathematical facts? Because everything I've said has happened. Every single darn thing. People complain when the price of Bitcoin moves from 120 to 110. This is a gift. The volatility is a gift to where we are moving forward. Again, also Donald Trump announced that as a part of his Intel acquisitions, they're setting up more of like a sovereign wealth fund. So much more like a kingship, like what we see in Saudi Arabia. And again, I think I've proven my point with that. I told you, the Make America Great Again, which I support, and I like and love a lot of the things Trump is doing. I'm also, very transparent. I'm real media. I'm the alternative media. I'm not a dogmatic worshiper, right? I only worship Jesus Christ the King and kneel for no one but him. I also call out the policies that I don't like, that I think are wrong. I mean, isn't that why you tune into people? Not to be cucked, away with their, dogmatism, which you see on other channels 24/7. Or just bitching and complaining with no solutions. Again, 99.9% of the people you follow don't offer anything. They don't offer any kind of solution, nothing. They're not doing anything in the real world. It's just entertainment, and it's eating Doritos every single day, which most Americans actually love. I mean, they wouldn't do anything else. So this is teeing up for the perfect storm, the perfect super cycle bubble, the perfect transitionary crisis to blockchain, the perfect alignment into the crypto pump. And this is where it's going to go. So as we move into September, notice that these have been, even in the stock market, some of the most hated rallies that have ever occurred in world history. NVIDIA, we see it even up today on a couple different announcements. And although everyone thinks, right, everyone's waiting, like thinking that housing prices are going to come back, or thinking that, Bitcoin's going to stop pumping, or, thinking that the elites somehow have designed a system so that you can win. Like they care about the middle class. They're not going to do any of that. The only thing that they're going to continue to do is pump things into infinity, create an unaffordability crisis like I've been saying for years, remove ownership rights from you Americans, remove freedoms and liberties, and absolutely integrate you into a surveillance state, of which if you don't fight back and find new solutions and build new stuff, you will be a freaking slave. And that's just the hard-hitting and in-your-face truth. I think there's one last closing point that I wanted to make today. But I opened up this video as I'm praying on this so that I can deliver a closing statement. This is an emergency video for America. that massive stagflation is ahead. This means hyperinflation continues, plus no growth, plus the human replacement, plus robots and AI taking all of your jobs. They will be rolling out UBIs, I predicted for years, next. It will be universal low poverty peasantry income. You're not going to get ahead. So it'll be like the equivalent of living in the digital projects, right? Like, when is a government, let me give you an example. For those of you on Social Security, do you consider yourself rich? Are you getting so much money from the government each month? It's just you're absolutely living in high income? Of course not. You're barely getting by. The adjustments, even from an inflation perspective, are barely moving on whatever Social Security you get. It's just enough to get by. It's just enough to get a cheeseburger, right? So nothing's going to change with this whole rollout of UBI. The only reason the elites are rolling it out is one reason: stifle any potential resistance. Stifle any potential groundling stirrings of a revolt. Dumb down and medicate their slaves, which they've been doing. I mean, that's why they did everything these last couple of years. We understand what it is. I hope you understand. So, without further ado, I probably won't go too much longer. I feel like there was some kind of overarching closing statement that I wanted to make. But I think that closing statement is just me ringing the bell to a lot of people that tune into me around the world. I have millions of people, billions of eyeballs, millions of subscribers across social media. I started in 2008 and 09 before everyone else, just like I started in Bitcoin and crypto before everybody else. Just like we built our fractional, soon-to-be multi-billion-dollar tokenized real estate project before everyone else. Later on, it all goes mainstream, which is happening now, and then people go, aha, this guy's a genius, he was right about everything. How did he know? But for the majority, it's too late by the time they figure it out. It's an IQ test. So here's my overall message today. What are you waiting for? What are you doing today with focused attention to improve your life? I spoke with a great gentleman last week. He's only been following me for 2 months. His name is Frank. Wonderful gentleman. We went through his entire portfolio. I gave him just amazing advice. I have to say, not financial advice. He said, Christopher, wow, I've been following you for a couple months. I've already gotten so much more value than the $1,500 I paid. Thank you so much. I'll be getting into Deck 2 as soon as it opens up. Like, again, and as we were explaining in the call, education is your key to success. Action is your key. Taking risk is how you're going to get ahead. Learning this stuff before the masses and putting it to work is how you're going to change your life. I opened this video talking about the Ikigai, which I've been speaking to quite a bit, where the goal, I believe, is to find a homeostasis with your purpose-filled, God-filled, driven life, to find meaning, to find peace and oneness with God, to only focus on the things you can control, right? Leave the rest that you can't control. For example, you can be the best farmer in the world and plant all your crops, but if a fire comes and burns them all down, because that's an act of God, like, I don't know, what are you going to do? If the rain doesn't come, even if that's in God's realm. The things you can't control, you leave to God. The things you can control, you implement in your own life. And I'll end with just a story about my own ancestry. Papa John's father, my grandfather, Gale, the original Greene boy, along with his brothers, grew up in the Depression. His father died when he was very young. He was head of the household of, I think, like 7 children. So he was the man of the house, like very young. No father, a huge setback. Forced to go out and make money, actually sold fruit on a street corner. I've told these stories before, literally, during the Depression to make ends meet. Him and his brothers just struggling to survive. Entrepreneurs by necessity, not by choice, eventually made their way out from Iowa. They borrowed a car. They made a little bit of money taking rental cars to California, landed in what they thought was like the golden holy land in their time. I mean, California wasn't overpopulated. The beaches were endless. The women were beautiful. How could you not love it, right? Taxes weren't where they were today. There wasn't the same levels of crime. And they worked their way up and started flipping hamburgers. And long story short, going door to door, started making pickles and relish and sauces and started selling it. And over a long period of time, their first generation, most of their lives through hard work and suffering and just pure elbow grease and bootstrapping, built an incredible company that later on did business with all the big majors like you've heard of, like In-N-Out. All the pickles are Green Boys pickles under private label. The barbecue sauces at places like Hardee's and Carl's Jr. are Green Boys foods. And that's what my father did for years before selling the company along with my godfather, Jan, to a private equity company after leading the charge through their second generation. And yesterday I shared a picture with you, and my grandfather retired in Maui. Never had a day to himself, never worked out, didn't have the time, was working too much. Loved to play golf, they called him the mayor out here in Maui, Boo. Had a big pot belly because he never really worked out. Smoked almost 2 packs a day, too. Lived well into his 80s, just piles of ash. And that's kind of how he dealt with the stress. It was a part of the era. Right, always dressed in these suspenders at a gold Rolex. I think a presidential. And those were really the only nice things he ever had. I mean, most of his life he was just broke, working his way up. Had a plant in Los Angeles, kind of in a terrible part of LA as they grew. And then things got better over time through multiple generations. And so I shared this picture with you that means a lot to me because the first condo that our family ever owned was my grandpa's. It was a small place, not large, but it was actually on the beach. In those days, the prices weren't where they are now, so things were a lot more affordable, and that's where they retired. They later on went to own other properties and move around a bit, but it's actually where I learned to walk for the first time. I didn't live there. My parents would, we would visit, and that's actually where I learned to walk, on the beach. And I was just thinking about how grateful I am for my ancestors, my forefathers, my grandpa, his forefathers, my father, Papa John, because all of these people have worked so incredibly hard, as your ancestors have, to attempt, no guarantees, to give you the best life that they possibly could. My grandfather, he could have complained. He could have, taken a different fork in the road. He could have blamed other people, said, well, my father died, I'm a victim. He could have played himself the victim. He could have left and ran away from home and went away from all the responsibility of taking care of all the other kids and his mother. He could have just been a loser. Like, honestly, a lot of people are like that. They just, no conviction, no guts, no discipline, no willing to suffer, bleed, right, for the things that they want in life. I always tell you, every time you get up in the morning, it should be worth dying for. Like, what you do, you should not only believe, it should be literally your purpose for, like, breathing air. Every single day I wake up, I kneel to the Bible, put my hand on it, and praise God for the day. Just that I have the opportunity to be great. And so I want you to take these things to heart. I won't go too long into the tooth, but I want you to understand how much power you have and how your ancestors are counting on you, how I'm counting on you, how America is counting on you, and that your complacency, your compliance, your apatheticness, your laziness only will help the evil cabal ruin the future. And you have a choice to make whether or not you help build something better or not. In my whole life, even if it's just a ripple that turns into a tidal wave, which I believe it already has. I mean, our reach is incredible. Only God could have given me that reach, and that's insane. When I preach, it reaches millions of people. When I say something, it reaches millions of eyeballs. If I come up with ideas, you'll see them spread. A couple of weeks will go by, and then other people will start talking about it. That's an incredible platform. Kind of like a preacher with a large congregation. That's insane. And so I want you to understand the power that you guys actually have. Like, for example, you can like this video and millions of more people will see it instantly. You can leave a comment and you can mess with those algorithms and it'll be seated higher in the rankings. You can join an onboard deck 2, live your investment with us and get rich. Not hard to do. You just have to text my dad, 808-442-2934 and say, John Greene, I'm RSVPing, Papa John. Here's my name and phone number. Reach out as soon as Deck 2 is launched. You can join my school at islandprojectclub.com. Get all my 1000X picks and more and all my reviews and macro analysis that I can't put out publicly simply by clicking the link below, paying $1,500, a one-time fee, staying tuned for my next video, or booking a call if I still have any open. All these things are within your power and within your grasp. For example, you could have bought Bitcoin under 1,000 when I first recommended it. You could have bought it for 3,500 in 2020. You could have bought Ethereum at 1,500 just, 30 days ago? But a lot of you still missed it. You took no action, and so you didn't triple your money. You did nothing. You let the system screw you. You got poor. You grew weaker. You could have been hiking a mountain, as I was doing all weekend, sweating my diamond nuts off. You could be losing weight. You could be getting stronger. You could be finding peace with God. You could be finding hope and community. You could be building yourself up. You could be living what the Japanese call the ikigai, or not. What you do next in this crisis actually matters. What you build will predetermine the future ancestry of your kids and grandkids. I speak for myself, but what I'm fighting for is not just all of you tuning in, all of our community members as a community organizer, as an inventor, as a media personality, as a blockchain expert, as the creator, the builder, the Noah in the digital form of the Noah's Ark, is not just fighting for all of you, everyone that tunes in, for freedom and liberty and understanding and education, by the way, which is all for free, and politics and all these kinds of things. But as for my children, my members' children, your grandchildren, and all the future generations. Every generation gets stronger, hopefully, on your family tree. And the amazing thing that I've seen is that this happens in a first generation. A first generation. Like, it's absolutely incredible to think about that the world's billionaires, all of them are first generational. So it's not like they inherited their money, right? It's not like, some of them might have been better off than others, but most of the real, solution-oriented products, services you guys are all using are all first generational, and they happen even within a period of decades at some times. That's amazing to think about. So again, I ask, knowing all of you are smart, you understand what's going on, you know they're building a police state, that there's a war with Christians, that the American Constitution is being overthrown. We all know America's not going to look like anything that it once was. We know that they're changing the system. We understand surveillance and the new order and control of food and population control. I mean, the list goes on and on. We're following this stuff all day long. My point is, what the hell are you guys doing about it? And if you're doing nothing, you're the problem. All my attention is focused on solution-oriented goals, building blocks, creating things. Even my own children every single day are either building businesses, or they're building with Legos, or they're creating and finding creative solutions to their lives, or they're pursuing their ikigai or their passions, or they're learning, or they're enhancing themselves and their spirit, their physicality, their souls, their relationships, their love for other people, their empathy for others. And so I just encourage you as we move forward, because again, this is a violent takeover. And the 99.9% not you, you're my ballers, you're my diamond nutters. The 99.9% of the world has complied. They've given up on themselves. They've given up completely. And they've allowed what I believe, honestly, to be brute force dominatrix narcissists, because these are the only people that actually would probably get involved in politics, and allowed them to essentially dictate the new system and the new order. And they actually think that their meaningless vote is actually going to do something. I'm here to tell you, it's not going to do anything. Nothing. So you have a choice, either to allow other people to dominate, not just yourself, but future generations, enslave your children and grandchildren permanently, or to fight back. Again, as Christians, we slam the door on those that won't hear the word politely, and we dust our feet just like Jesus did. We go to the next place or the next house, and we preach the word. We just keep moving on, upwards and onwards, up only. We keep improving. Even with your body, again, just keep improving and keep moving each and every day. I'll leave you with some high-spirited positivity as we close out the video. And make sure you click the link below and get into my club now so that you can get into Deck 2. But one thing all the centenarians and super centenarians have in common, people that live above 100 or 110 years in the blue zones like Okinawa, are the following. 1, no retirement. They're either working or volunteering. They have purpose and community. They have daily low-impact movements. They actually usually don't drive cars. They either walk, okay, or ride a bike. If they're in a wheelchair because they're super old, they still move. They do things like Tai Chi, or they do yoga, or other types of bodily flow movements. Also, all of these zones, there's a few in Europe, I think off one of the islands in Greece, they also do one thing that I think is really interesting. They all tend to their personal vegetable gardens, and they eat the rainbow, just like the covenant of God. So when they eat a plate, usually like in Japan, it's a lot of fatty tuna focused, and they eat a lot of vegetables and things like that. There's a fruit, I forget the name of, which has a nutrient in it that is like 1,000 times the nutrient of like an orange. I'll have to find out what that is, or maybe one of you can look that up for me. So they're moving, they have purpose. They're also not in a rush. You notice how most Americans are constantly in a rush, but they're not going anywhere? Or they're always trying to multitask, so essentially they're not doing anything. They're not focused in accomplishing whatever it is they're setting out to do. I mean, for example, when I was building the island project, Founders Round, which is now closed, that's the only thing I'm focused on. Now the only thing I'm focused on is Deck 2, and it will be completed soon once we release it. And then our tokenization launch and our giant public offering to the world. See our terms and disclaimers, and our multi-billion-dollar asset class that we've created. It's very focused, filled, and specific to the actual goal. And then the rest of it, you just leave up to God. I mean, I can't control the weather. I can't control the rain. I can't control his return. I have no idea the day or hour. But in the meantime, we fight back. We evangelize. We find a purpose-filled, driven life. So I encourage you, for those of you that feel so alone, feel like you don't have a community, feel like you lack purpose, I'm here to tell you that you do have purpose. I'm here to tell you that you are special and valued, that God created you in his perfection. I was reading, for example, today that scientists, always interfering with God, have allegedly invented this new CRISPR technology of which they're going to edit, and splice your God code up, where they say that they can reverse people with Down syndrome. I was thinking to myself, why would someone with Down syndrome want to reverse what God had already made perfect? Just because you have Down syndrome doesn't mean you're not perfect. You were created perfectly in the image of God. I would argue you're probably smarter than most people. People that have special needs don't have anything wrong with them. You actually have everything right with you. Do you understand? All of our imperfections, our flaws, and even our sin were built in the perfect creation and image of God. How dare scientists question his perfection? We see this with abortion, for example, as if humans are going to make the decision on life. If you look at nature, for example, it's imperfect. The Japanese, as I like learning about different cultures from my own, so I understand the world and have empathy for other people, is that they actually value the imperfect more than they do what's perfect. We see this in nature all the time. We also can see this in things like pottery. So for example, the Japanese will actually value a teapot or a teacup with a crack or an imperfection that held together more so than what they would what the world considers perfect. Because the imperfect is actually the perfection of God. So here is my overarching statement that I wanted to make today that comes from the Holy Spirit that I was having trouble finding before, is that all of you have been built in the perfect image. All of you are special. There's nothing wrong with you. You're perfectly made. And that is an incredible thing to think about. Everything about how our world, nature, the environment, your bodies, all of it is a perfect creation and was not a mistake. God does not make mistakes. He is omniscient. He is omnipresent. He knows every hair on your head. As I always tell all my children, he knows every thought, every action, every obstacle, every sin, every victory. And you were created for a reason in this symphony that is life. And all of us play a role in it. So when you think about yourself, the world, nature, the trees, the birds, and energy, all a part of this wonderful symphony that is God's perfect creation, all of us with a voice, all of us with a sound of music that glorifies him. And we read about this in the book of Revelation, for example, where the elders cast their crowns at the feet of God and at the throne. And there is just giant song of thousands and tens of thousands of angels singing collectively. Makes up all of us here, even on earth, in this temporal, soon to be eternal experience that we have with the one true King. So we must view things in that lens. For example, I'll give you more kind of tidbits about Japan, but when they build temples and these kinds of things, they don't build them to withstand hundreds or thousands of years like you'll see in parts of Europe with its architecture or Gothic churches or these kinds of things. They actually rebuild them about every 20 years or so. And they expect future generations to preserve tradition and kind of the orated word and understanding more so than they do like a building. They expect to be always rebuilding and recreating because they understand everything turns to dust and moth and rot, right? And so, as we live in the world, stop going to the world for the solution and start going to God. Stop looking to the world for the solution to your problem and start looking to him. Stop trying to control the things you have no control over. Only influence the things and do the things you actually do, and then give the rest to God. And also understand that people wear masks, and it's important how you present yourself. That 80% of all human expression and communication is actually nonverbal. You see this all the time where like someone says something, but you can tell by the tonality of their voice, they mean something else. They might say yes, but by the tone of their voice, they mean no. You can see this by the way someone stands. You can see this by the clothing someone wears. You can see this with, again, the tone of their voice, the confidence in their walk, the things that they do, posture, the way they hold themselves. For example, very few of you hold your hands up like this often. Think about this. This is one of the moves they do, like in Japan, okay? They do this thing called like the sun pose, right? They have their hands up. How often do you do that? Try it. It actually feels great. Put your body language is important. You ever seen someone, they're like this all the time? That is not a like confident presentation. People feed off each other. Your energy will feed off into the universe. You clicking this video and liking it will feed off and spread into the universe simply by energy. So I won't go too long into the tooth. I'm about 65 minutes in. But I'm just wholeheartedly sharing with you that you have all the power through God to be great, to not focus on the negatives that are currently taking place, to become the solution, and to live an amazing, extraordinary life in service to others with empathy, with gratitude, through charity, and through love. And it's all possible simply by changing your mindset, which I've always said was the 1000X. And I'm living proof of that. Through the faith of a mustard seed, you can move a mountain. Faith in God allows you to walk on water. And you can change it all today with us by joining the Island Project, our club, and RSVPing with my dad to get ready and to enter Deck 2 as we build the digital Noah's Ark with 100% reserve requirements, no bank debt, transform and encourage the world, and make you rich and build kingdom wealth, which is my personal goal while I'm here, to make all of you so great that you become the tidal wave of the resistance and those of us that do not comply and serve God and God alone. It is an honor. I love you. That's the conclusion of today's emergency video, and it's exactly what is going to happen next. And I've been telling you this for multiple decades, and every single thing we have warned has played out over time. I'm usually, years ahead. Like my good friend Donut will always tell you, Chris is way, way ahead, and then boom, it happens suddenly overnight. I love you. I know because God tells me. I know because I read the Bible, and I read a lot too. I encourage you to do that. Get off your cell phones and realize they are a control system of mind control, and that the elites are actually manipulating your brainwaves and your energetic potential, and honestly, attempt to downtrodden your soul to keep it in a low, negative state, dark vibration of which they feed on, and what not God, but what Satan actually consumes. Satan consumes destruction, and they call him the abomination of desolation for a reason. And that's what all that doom scrolling and all that stuff many people are doing on a daily basis does. It consumes your soul so Satan can feed. But he has no power over you at all. Rebuke him in the name of Jesus Christ the Lord. Focus on what you can control. Work your ass off and go up only. I'm also on a whole new workout plan. I'm leaning out and I'm getting ripped for the tribulation. It's going to be sick. I also want to be ripped for the rapture. Pre-trib, mid-trib, post-trib. Don't leave anything to doubt, okay? We go big, baby. We going freaking diamond up big. I love you, Yang, Mickey, the rest of you. Have a great one. Text my Papa John, my dad, 808-442-2934, and just say, Deck 2, I'm in, RSVP, leave your name, and a way to contact you, and we'll make sure we'll reach out to you first, along with the club, and I'm very bullish. I'm expecting new all-time highs as we approach September, the World Liberty Fi launch. I'm expecting all records to be broken, altcoins to explode, in some cases 100x to 1000x higher. Massive, massive moves, and as a result of that, there's going to be the biggest wealth transfer, which has already really occurred, from the middle class in world history. Most people are going to be left behind. And if you put your faith in Elon Musk, he says he's going to put you for free, think about this, for free on universal high income. As much as I think Elon might be a nice guy, ain't going to happen, guys. Ain't going to happen. Again, God first, faith first, put in the work, become the solution, get rich, join us, pray, have faith, abundance. Do not be apathetic. Do not be a loser. Do not be inactive. And take your power back. Take God's power and use it for good while you are still here. And work for daily improvements and consistency which turns into the 1000x. If you can't walk, crawl, okay? If you can walk, run or jog. If you can jog, run. If you can run, sprint. If you can't do that, stretch. Do anything and live the best life that you can while you're here. Treat your body with respect. Treat your soul with respect. Treat human life with respect and empathy. And look to others and pay attention to them too. And be in a positive, community and mindset. But be empathetic to other people too. Empathize with them. Help them and see what they really need and try to lift people up. If they refuse, close the door, walk on to the next home. I love you all.